All right, let's actually get into how to play this song now. It's shaped up to be like a solid intermediate / upper intermediate fingerstyle tune. But if you can't keep up with the fingerstyle part of this, you can still learn the chords, so it's a great song to learn in that regard. So just keep that in mind. Okay, you can start off, it starts off on an F chord. And when you get into the actual melody, I just play an F power chord right here. And what I do is I just keep the alternating bass going for each chord. And it's in the tab. You can see the fingering from both the left and right hand for each chord as we move through them in the tab. So melody on top. That's that little first part for the F chord. And all I did was play Yesterday with my index and second finger there while keeping the bass line going. I'm going to move down to an E sus4 chord, and I kind of keep the bass line going. That's first, and then you have, again, with only the melody on this time, so for that E sus4 chord. And then I move to an A7 chord, but I'll use these two fingers to play second and third fingers just because I need these fingers to play the melody here in a second. And it's right here. You're going to play for the thumb. You're going to play the A and the D strings. And for the melody, you have this on the top there with your third finger, then you come down with your fourth finger on the third fret there of the B string. So then you have the open high E string, and then the first fret of the high E string. So for the A7 chord, you have, so for the melody on top, and then just alternating bass on the A and D strings. From there you move to a D minor chord, and it looks just like a D add 9. I just use these two fingers to make a D add 9 chord. And the melody on top is just that, and then the alternating bass for the D chord is just the D and G strings. From there you have a walk down on that C note right there, and then the open G string. And you have a B flat. That's the way it starts out with that alternating bass on the A and D strings, and then you have the melody on top too. Then you switch to a C major chord. And the alternating bass for the C chord is just the A and D strings. But the melodies, so that's tricky. You have to have the melody on top, but you have to keep this going on the bottom at the same time. So you gotta have to shift your fingers around. I'll show you how. This is probably the hardest part of the song for me. Very tricky. So work that out very slowly on its own. Next you have an F sus4 chord. And it's just an F bar chord with your pinky right there on the third fret of the G string. And your low notes are just the low two strings. And you have the, so one more time slowly. From there you have another little walk down. You have the open G string with the melody on top, and then you have the open E string, and then the third fret of the A string for your bass line. From there you have to have a D minor chord, and I just use this version of a D minor. D, F, and A. For the bass notes on this one, you have just the A and the E strings alternating, starting on the A string. And the melody here is just index finger there on the third fret of the D string, then the seventh fret with your pinky, and then the open G string. From there you need to let that G string ring out because you're about to move to a G chord. So once that G is ringing out, you have these two notes in the bass, the B and the G. So that whole thing. Then you have this little melody note to finish this part of the G, which is just the open D chord. From there you have a B flat major 7. So if you never played a B flat major 7, that's the shape I'm using. And then I'm just alternating between the A and low E strings for the bass notes. And then for the melody on top, that's the melody on top. Just the D and the G string, so. And then right here you switch to an F. So let me play that whole first little A section for you. I know it's a lot to take on, but just look at the tab, pay attention to the fingerings for both the left and right hands, take it one little chord at a time. From there it goes into the B section, or what I call the B section of the song, and all I do is play an E power chord, but it's basically an E sus 4 chord. I just borrow those 3 strings with my index finger, the A, D, and G strings, and just alternate bass on the low E and A string, so and then switch to an A chord. Switch your bass notes to the A and D strings, keep that same melody note on top, just on the G string. From there I go to a D minor, or in this case it looks like a D sus2 or a D add 9 chord. Then a C chord. On the D chord your bass notes are the D and G strings. On the C chord it switches to the A and D strings. And the melody notes there go from the third, just the D note there on the 3rd fret of the B string to the high E string open. Then you have a B flat major. Then this gets a little bit tricky right here because you have to have a B flat major bar chord right here. Then you have to take the bar off and just play the open B high E string. So, and then the note you're fretting there with your pinky. That's the melody for that. So let me go from the E power chord, the E sus 4 chord there for the B section. And the D minor, C, B flat major. After that you have a G chord with a high E string in the melody. But for the alternating bass on this G chord you have the G string, or sorry, the G note on that low E string and then the open D string. And then this D note right here for the next melody note as you alternate to with your pinky on the 3rd fret of the B string there. So after that you have a C major chord, so just alternate on the A and D strings, and then your melody notes are the B string you're holding down with your index finger. And then you grab this next melody note with your pinky, 3rd fret of the B string. Then you go to an F chord. And you have just that one melody note on top, then alternating bass notes. And then you kind of repeat that first phrase of the B section again. I'll let you know when it changes here. Then the G. And then you C, and then you go to an F chord, but you have kind of a walk down as far as the melody on top. So you have the high E, just alternating between the E and A strings for your bass, and then you have the high E string, then the B string, then you have to sus the chord right there with your pinky on the G string, and take the sus off, and then I am just on the root note, 2 Fs. So that. So let me play the entire B section for you slowly. So that's the arrangement of Yesterday that I came up with just because, you know, I was inspired by the Beatles, by a documentary. This is a really good example of how you can take any tune that you like and put some basic fingerstyle principles as far as, you know, alternating bass and melody on top, and just come up with your own arrangement for a tune. I'm really curious to know what songs you'd like to see for this. I have a couple ideas for myself, but I'd like to see what songs you're thinking about doing or songs you'd like to see me do in this style in the comments below the video. I'll see you later.